Ended the day lower as investors wait for an interest rate decision from the Federal Reserve. All signs point to a cut based on the most recent economic reports, and despite rising inflation, consumers were spending last month.
In July, consumer demand was relatively strong, with the Census Bureau reporting a 0.5% rise in retail sales. Last month, the surge continued, with sales up 0.6% and ahead 5% from last August to this. The Census Bureau figures point to strong back-to-school spending.
ABC's Jim Ryan. The White House is again pushing back a deal for TikTok.
December 16th is the new deadline for TikTok's Chinese parent company to sell the popular app to an American buyer, else it'll be booted from American app stores. This marks the fourth time President Trump has pushed back the deadline. The previous date had been set for this week. Before leaving for Europe, the president told reporters that a group of very big companies want to buy TikTok. He added he plans to speak with Chinese President Xi Jinping on Friday. Mike Dubusky, ABC News.
Federal safety investigators say they're looking into complaints from several parents about a possible defect in Tesla doors that stopped working due to a low battery power, trapping kids in the back seat. In 4 cases, parents had to break the windows to get inside. And Costco is recalling bottles of its Kirkland store brand Prosecco because the glass bottles can shatter without warning. Dave Packer, ABC News.
Progressive presents Employee of the Month. Small Business Edition. Today's recipient from Lucky Larry's Landscaping, Larry! Larry saved his business money with a quick commercial auto quote from Progressive. Does it help he's his own marketing manager, accountant, executive assistant, and never been late? Technically, yes, but saving really put him over the edge. So, Larry, give Larry a round of applause. Be your own Larry. See if you could save in as little as 8 minutes at ProgressiveCommercial.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates.
News Talk 610 AM and 102.1 FM. KBNU.
Good afternoon. It's now 5:05, and with your local headlines, I'm Will Feelright. Well, prosecutors have now filed charges against the man accused of shooting and killing Charlie Kirk last week at Utah Valley University. Tyler James Robinson was arraigned before a judge earlier today. Meanwhile, the Utah County Attorney, Jeff Gray, says he plans to seek the death penalty for Robinson. Now, this comes as investigators say that a DNA match has linked Robinson in the assassination of Kirk. Now, FBI Director Kash Patel said yesterday that DNA on a towel that was wrapped around a rifle found near the crime scene, as well as on a screwdriver that was recovered from the rooftop, matched that of Robinson. Now, authorities in Utah say that they are going to seek the death penalty. Officials have said that Robinson, who is not cooperating with law enforcement, carried a hatred for Kirk and had a leftist ideology that had grown in recent years. Now, according to Utah Governor Spencer Cox, family and friends said that Robinson had spent large amounts of time scrolling the dark corners of the internet. Now, Patel told Fox News Channel yesterday that investigators recovered a note written by Robinson before the shooting in which he said that he had an opportunity to take out Kirk and was going to do it. Meanwhile, in other news, a Utah County man is accused of luring a woman to his home and then by placing a babysitting ad online and then sexually abusing her when she showed up. Robert Frederick Ryan, a 41-year-old of American Fork, was charged yesterday with aggravated kidnapping and forcible sexual abuse. Now, according to charging documents, a woman responded to an online ad for a babysitting job back on July 31st, Now, Ryan called her and asked her to come to his home to meet the child that she would allegedly be caring for. But when she arrived, Ryan inappropriately touched her and then forced her into a back room until she was able to escape. Now, when police questioned Ryan about the allegations, he admitted that he was lonely and may have gone too far with things. Now, investigators say that they have also received reports from at least 2 other women who responded to his babysitting ads and were also told to come to his home alone. In other news, Robert Redford, the Hollywood golden boy who became the Oscar-winning director and activist, has died at the age of 89. Publicist Cindy Berger said in a statement that Redford died at his home in Sundance this morning. Now, no cause of death was provided, but the statement did say that he died surrounded by those that he loved. Now, Redford rose to stardom back in the 1960s and was one of the biggest stars of the 70s with such films as The Candidate, All the President's Men, and The Way We Were. He also won Best Director in the 1980 film Ordinary People, which also won Best Picture at the Oscars. Now, his blonde hair and boyish grin made him one of the most desired leading men, but he also took the unglamorous roles and worked to provide a platform for low-budget movies. Back in the 1980s, he created the Sundance Institute to try to foster independent films and was, of course, the one behind the Institute's festival that was held in Park City for years. And finally, Utah State University student Sarah Miranda is representing her home country of Costa Rica at the upcoming IPC World Swimming Championships in Singapore. Now, Miranda was born with spina bifida and says she feels like she is in a different world when she's able to get in the pool because she can move without crutches. Now, she began swimming as a form of therapy at the age of 5 and then became a competitive swimmer at age 8. Now, she has since competed in numerous events across the United States, Mexico, Nicaragua, Colombia, Chile, and Costa Rica. Now, at the age of 20, Miranda has intensified her workouts and is preparing for the championship by training in the pool for 3 hours a day, 6 days a week. Good luck to her. Well, we're going to continue to see clear skies through the rest of the afternoon as temperatures have been in the mid-70s today. Tonight we'll drop into the low 40s, be back into the mid-70s for tomorrow. A little warmer weather coming for Thursday and Friday before we'll start to see a chance of some isolated showers and thunderstorms for the weekend. And news and weather this hour brought to you by Logan Extermination. They can help green up your lawn and help you win the bug battle. It's Logan Extermination. Give them a call today at 752-8450. And I'm Will Feelwright with your KVNU News headlines.
Today's hearing aid technology can improve not only your life, but the lives of the people who care about you. Once again, you'll be able to hear the reason for their laughter and understand conversations. Dr. Paul Danes at Cache Valley Hearing and Audiology will customize a hearing improvement program to meet your unique requirements, whatever they are. Call Cache Valley Hearing and Audiology for an appointment and let them show you how.
Bring back what you've been missing. Bring back Cache Valley Hearing and Audiology.
News Talk KVNU, 610 AM at 102.1 FM.
Finding effective and affordable insurance solutions can be stressful. This is Matt Robbins with Quality First Insurance. As a kid growing up, my father, Gordon, took care of my insurance, and I knew I never needed to worry. I was covered. I've continued to provide that same service for my clients at Quality First. My team of experienced agents work hard to ensure every customer gets the help they need. Let's sit down and take the stress out of your insurance. Call us today, 435-752-0101.
Meet me downtown. Meet me in downtown Logan.
Hi, this is Lance Zollinger with Cache Valley Bank. We love supporting local events, and we are proud to support the Cytiva Top of Utah Marathon coming to downtown Logan on Saturday, September 20th. Cache Valley Bank invites everyone to meet us in downtown Logan to run, cheer, or even volunteer at the Cytiva Top of Utah Marathon. Cache Valley Bank, member FDIC.
Meet me downtown. Meet me in downtown Logan.
Welcome back to KVNU's For the People, hour 2 of today's show. It's now 74 degrees here at the Radio Ranch at 5:11 in the afternoon. We've gone up 2 degrees, 3 degrees. Going to be back up in the 80s here soon, it looks like, and maybe even some more moisture on the weekend, but I'm enjoying these cooler temperatures. Jumping right back in here, we've got a lot to cover this hour. A special message from Sutherland Institute. In light of the tragic events here in Utah last week, Sutherland Institute's Nick Dunn told me instead of a full episode of Defending Ideas they had planned, that they always send a sneak preview of to our listeners to hear on Tuesdays here on the show, they decided to scrap that, what they had planned entirely, and instead put together a special message regarding the events and how to productively respond and even combat violence, contempt, and polarization in our politics. So that's coming up later on this hour. But to kick things off here, I reached out after Governor Cox made some comments last week about this suspect, the alleged shooter, being radicalized online, and then also noting the age of the shooter. I reached out to a friend of the show, someone who's appeared here over the years to kind of present a Gen Z voice to some topics. Last time we had Chayse Leavitt join us, I believe, was when we were talking about Governor Cox's push for legislation to restrict social media access for young people in Utah, including a proposed curfew. That didn't happen. But we had Chayse on to talk about that, to present that younger mindset. Chayse grew up in a world that's always been connected, always been, filled with social media. And so he was able to provide some interesting perspective on that front. So I reached out to him and said, would you join us to talk about the Charlie Kirk assassination, the discussion about online radicalization, all of that stuff? Chayse is preparing for a LDS mission, leaves in a couple of weeks. So he's a busy guy. So he wasn't able to join us live here on the show today, but we were able to sit down earlier and talk about all this. And Chayse told me, as a conservative activist, he's volunteered on campaigns and things like that, done some voter registration stuff. He said he was actually inspired to podcast and get involved politically by Charlie Kirk. Here is some of the conversation Chayse and I had about this recent tragedy from a young person's perspective. And maybe, Chayse, a good way to start this off is just yesterday, the governor released a video directed, now it was directed specifically at college students, but it was anybody basically your age. And the governor said, and he doesn't come right out and say it, but the implication here is based off of what he's learned through the investigation after the political assassination of Charlie Kirk last Wednesday at Utah Valley University. He's saying to college students, we've got to dial it down. And his exact words, he says, I want you to reject the hate. And remember that no person is a label or a political party or even something they posted online. They're much more than that. They're a human being. I'm paraphrasing. So turning to you, Chayse, someone in the age group the governor was speaking to, and someone also that has been influenced by Charlie Kirk himself over the years as an activist and someone who was inspired to yourself get civically engaged and volunteer on campaigns and promote voting and voter registration, all of that. What are you thinking over the last almost week as this played out?
Well, first and foremost, I just want to say that my prayers are with the family of Charlie Kirk and anybody that was there that had to experience that horrific act of evil.
I forget the ages of his children.
I think
very
3
young.
and 1.
3 and 1, okay.
3 and 1.
I remembered very young, but
right.
Yeah.
I mean, Charlie Kirk was a guy, being a young person in politics, it kind of sometimes feels like we're ignored. It feels like, all these politicians out there are just doing what's best for them. They're not really thinking about the next generation of leaders.
Sure.
Next generation of people that are going to be involved in our government, in politics in general.
Sure.
And Charlie Kirk, at 18 years old himself, started Turning Point USA, which its mission was to activate young people.
Yeah, it was kind of a
countrywide,
sort of a voter registration project,
right?
At first, right?
Right, and to educate, people my age about conservative politics, what it means to be a conservative, and what it means, what all that entails. And so Charlie Kirk dedicated his life to standing up and promoting the next generation of conservatives. And as somebody who falls in line with that, Charlie Kirk was a political hero to me.
Sure.
He was somebody who stood firm on what he believed. He was a proud Christian. He was a proud conservative. And I think his loss is deeply devastating to young people worldwide. I mean, we're seeing these people in the UK, gathering in large numbers.
I saw some of that on Twitter the other day.
Right, and college campuses all over the country where he made his own his impact. I mean, Charlie Kirk would go on to college campuses to have conversations. He would often say that once conversations end, violence begins, and he understood the importance of freedom of speech and having conversations with those that we disagree with, because just because someone disagrees with us doesn't mean they're a terrible person.
Sure.
If we're not having those conversations, we're going to turn to violence, and things happen just like what happened to Charlie Kirk himself.
We shouldn't touch on that, because if you look at every time an event like this has happened, that has been the very predictable lead up to it. You know, and the governor mentioned this as well, but you do see a pattern almost, in hindsight, of course.
Yeah.
You see a pattern almost that escalates to events like this. We saw it in the 60s. And for you, as a young person, does this, I'll ask the question bluntly, does this discourage you from being civically engaged? Does this make you think, I just don't, I mean, this whole political world is too far gone, or does it cause different emotions?
Not at all.
I mean, I know it's only been days, so that's an unfair question, but...
No, it's not unfair at all, because honestly, when I, last summer, when President Trump was nearly assassinated,
sure,
I was watching it live, and there was a sort of kind of fire that kind of lit inside me, and I was just packing to head to the RNC.
Oh, wow.
And there was something in me that kind of was like, okay, like it was energizing in a way, seeing him get up and pumping his fist, saying, fight, fight, fight. And then when Charlie Kirk was assassinated last week, my first thought was obviously I was sick. I didn't know how to process those emotions, because I was like, this stuff should not happen.
Sure.
But this in no way discourages me from being civically engaged. In fact, it only increases my want to be civically engaged, because when there's stuff like this happening, that just shows we need more people getting involved to make sure it doesn't.
Sure.
I mean, Charlie Kirk died a martyr for truth, for freedom of speech, for, in my eyes, American values, for God, family, country. And I think, in addition to me, there are millions of young kids, young conservatives who saw the events that unfolded last Wednesday that are like, it woke everyone up. It awoke a sleeping giant. Whatever motive this assassin had, whether he wanted to silence Charlie Kirk, I think there's a message that we need to share with him and anybody who's cheering on the death of Charlie Kirk, thinking that they silenced a voice, silenced a movement, or silenced a generation, that they just awoke a giant. Like, there are going to be so many people. I mean, Turning Point USA just had 32,000 new requests for chapters countrywide after
I read that.
After Erica Kirk's statement a couple days ago. And it just energizes me more, because seeing the impact that Charlie had, seeing the kind of person that he was, it's kind of like all of us who were fans of his are like, we need to pick up the microphone that he sadly wasn't able to pick up any longer, and carry on his legacy and make sure that we're fighting for the things that Charlie Kirk himself woke us all up to fight for.
Again, a conversation that I had earlier with Chayse Leavitt. Chayse is a local conservative activist here in Cache Valley. He also was inspired to get involved and to podcast even for a time by Charlie Kirk. And so I reached out to Chayse. He's been a guest here on the show over the years for the Gen Z perspective on legislation and headlines and more. But I reached out to him, said, would you like to talk about this? Chayse is preparing for an LDS mission. He leaves in a couple of weeks, so he's a very busy guy. Couldn't join us here live today, but we were able to sit down and have a conversation. And we'll get back to the audio of my conversation with local conservative activist and someone who says Charlie Kirk inspired him to get involved, Chayse Leavitt, right after this.
News Talk 610 AM, 102.1 FM, KVNU.
Here's what some of our patients have to say about how Red River has changed their lives.
I went the traditional medicine route, and it was not tailored to me. It was just a one-size-fits-all. It was, this is how you do the program, and it's probably not going to work. That's what everybody always told me along the way, and somebody told me about Red River. They brought me in, they did testing, and everything was catered to my body and what I was actually experiencing, which was incredible.
At Red River Health and Wellness, our whole goal is to identify the underlying mechanisms driving your condition. Once we identify those imbalances, then we'll we'll put a treatment plan together that's specific to you, and then we improve those imbalances one by one, and then slowly teach you and educate you and show you what to do and what not to do so that you're the expert in your own health long term.
I'll never forget the day I woke up and I went about my day and I stopped and I said, I feel completely normal. It really, truly not only helped me save my thyroid, but it gave me my life back.
Call Red River Health and Wellness at 855-55-RIVER.
Call Red River today.
Set sail with Princess Cruises for unforgettable destinations, luxury amenities, and world-class service. From the Caribbean to Alaska to Europe and Asia, every Princess Cruise is a dream come true. Book your cruise today with Morris Columbus Travel, your vacation experts. Visit morriscolumbus.com.
Come on and get away, Morris Columbus.
Wednesday edition, Clay and Buck will break down the charges against the assassin of Charlie Kirk, as well as more motivation-related information as that comes out. We'll also talk about whatever happened with my big debate with Stephen A. Smith. How did it go? Did I win? Did I lose? We'll play you some cuts. Should have some fun with that. All that coming your way. Wednesday edition. Make sure you come hang with us on Clay and Buck.
10 to 1 on News Talk KVNU, 102 FM and 610 AM.
Welcome back to KVNU's For the People. Again, I had a chance to sit down earlier with a local conservative activist and sometimes guest here on the show. We've had Chayse on to join us to bring a Gen Z perspective to some news items, including most recently we had him on to talk about Governor Cox's push to restrict social media for young people, proposed curfews and things like that. None of that ended up happening, really. Well, some of it did. But that was, I think, the last time we had Chayse on. But I reached out to Chayse knowing that a couple things. Chayse is the same age group as the suspect, the alleged shooter, who seven charges were presented against today in court. He is someone who is very familiar with the internet world in light of the governor yesterday, talking to college students, people Chayse's age, and saying it's time to reject the hate. So I thought of Chayse, and I invited him to weigh in on all this. He's a busy guy. He's headed out on an LDS mission in a couple of weeks. He couldn't join us here live today, but he was able to sit down with me, and we talked for quite some time. And so we'll get back to it. My conversation with local conservative activist, one-time podcaster, and young man who was inspired, he says, to get involved by Charlie Kirk. It's encouraging for me to hear you speak with words of defiance, sort of, to this event, because you wouldn't judge anyone, anywhere, if I remember. So another event that's getting discussed around this as well, when we talk about Governor Cox mentioning the heightened rhetoric and the dialed up temperature that he would like to see cool down. People have a big response after this happened from the left has been, so a Democratic lawmaker and her husband were shot and in a political assassination just 12 weeks ago, and it was a forgotten story, almost as if they're saying, this doesn't matter because this other atrocious thing happened a few months ago. And that to me is disappointing to hear. What isn't disappointing is hearing both people like you, Chayse, on the right and others on the left see this awful stuff happening and respond to it with defiance, saying, no, this isn't going to scare me away from voting. This isn't going to scare me away from political activism. I want to, I want to see both left and right respond to that this way. Because let's be honest, you mentioned it. You said, there's a question. Did this person want to silence Charlie Kirk? This person wanted to silence something. Any person who does anything like this was trying to silence something. Now, whether that be something they wanted to do just to be in some twisted version of becoming a celebrity themselves or, some other motivation, we don't know yet. But either way, that was the goal of this act. And that's what worries me, is that it will make people check out. So I love to hear the words of defiance from you, to hear you say, no, this makes me want to do more. This makes me want to speak more. This makes me want to be involved more. That's a healthy response.
Yeah, well, you mentioned the murders of the Minnesota lawmakers, which was a tragic event. And I think that kind of points to the fact that I believe no matter what your political beliefs are, whether you are conservative, a liberal, a libertarian, a socialist, whatever it is, in this country, you have the right to express that. You have, I may vehemently disagree with you and think what you're saying is absolutely crazy, but I will stand for your right to say it. And
Charlie Kirk said that a lot.
Charlie Kirk did.
That was
say
one
it.
of his mantras, right?
Right.
That you can. In fact, I remember a clip where he said, "You can hate me all you want. You have to love what I'm doing."
Right.
And I thought that was actually so perfect.
Right. And I mean, at the end of the day, no one should be subjected to the mercy of an assassin's bullet because they dared to have the courage to speak up for what they believe.
Sure.
We are in the United States of America. That should not happen. Charlie Kirk, he died doing what he did best, talking to people, having conversations.
Sure.
Even though he stood firm. But what's interesting, if you go and look back at some of his debates, because he'd post his little clips of his debates.
Sure.
Some of the people that
because these were like hours-long events, right? On campuses,
yeah. And so
you can't post the whole thing,
right. So he would post just little sections of it, and I was looking through them the other day, and it's interesting to see because the people that come up to him to debate him in bad faith, that are just coming out swinging, that are just being insulting and stuff. That's how Charlie Kirk responded. But so maybe that's why people saw him as controversial or hate-filled. But when people came up to him with respect, he showed them that same respect.
Sure,
and he had
did
that
kind of
conversation.
match the other person, basically.
I mean, but
even struck me in the clips. Most of the clips I had seen, everyone was having a good time.
Yeah,
like even the people. There were times when someone who was debating had him so mad his face would go red. And other times when he would be doing that to the college student he was debating. But everyone seemed to be enjoying themselves, I thought. Yeah. And that's what I liked about watching the clips. Like I say, it was really less about who I agreed with and who I didn't. It was more about this is fun. People are enjoying this, and it's encouraging people to have debates and have discussions.
Well, what's kind of interesting is that what he did on college campuses, whether people agreed with him or not, made people aware of issues. It made people kind of wake up to things. And what's really
because sometimes someone would watch him and go, "Oh, I hate everything he said. I'm going to go get involved."
Right.
That's still what he wanted, right?
Right. But another thing that's just crazy is since he was assassinated on Wednesday, it's been interesting because it's interesting to see how many people are posting stuff about him that I would have never thought had listened to him, had any interest in him. People that have no interest in politics that were posting about Charlie Kirk because of the impact that he made. I think his impact is way bigger than we could have ever imagined.
Again, a conversation here with Chayse Leavitt, a local conservative activist and one-time podcaster. Said he was actually inspired to get involved, to podcast, to speak out, to volunteer on campaigns, register voters, and more by Charlie Kirk himself. Chayse also happens to be in the age group of both the alleged shooter in this scenario, but also most recently the age group that Governor Cox was speaking to yesterday when he put out a special message in light of this tragedy saying to Chayse's age group, college student age group, we've got to reject the hate. So I asked Chayse to sit down and talk to us about this. Chayse, again, is preparing to leave on an LDS mission, wasn't able to join us live here today, but he was able to sit down with me. We ended up talking for about an hour and recorded most of that and get a perspective on someone who is literally both the target of the governor's message in rejecting hate, being careful online, things like that, as we've learned more and more about the alleged shooter and what possibly radicalized him. But Chayse is also someone, as you've just heard, who is not only a fan of Charlie Kirk, but is almost emboldened by this assassination that was meant to silence to get more involved. So it was a fascinating conversation. Chayse is a very smart guy, And there was one other part of the discussion I want to highlight on the other side of the news where Chase and I discussed, kind of what happens next in regards to young people and being involved and the idea of free speech in general, considering our polarized and contempt-filled politics. So we'll get to that. Our conversation with Chayse Leavitt, local conservative activist and one-time podcaster who was inspired to get involved by Charlie Kirk himself. More of that conversation after this look at the news with KVNU's Will Feel Right.
Well, thank you, Jason. Continuing our coverage this afternoon, authorities here in Utah say they are going to seek the death penalty now against Tyler Robinson. During a press conference that was held earlier today before Robinson appeared before a judge, Utah County Attorney Jeff Gray said that Robinson is facing 7 counts, including aggravated murder. Now, Gray also read aloud text messages between Robinson and his roommate during the news conference today that investigators say outline Robinson's feelings toward Kirk.
On September 10th, 2025, the roommate received a text message from Robinson which said, "Drop what you're doing. Look under my keyboard." The roommate looked under the keyboard and found a note that stated, quote, "I had the opportunity to take out Charlie Kirk, and I'm going to take it." Police found a photograph of this note.
Now, Gray said that Robinson's DNA, meanwhile, was also found on the trigger of the gun that was used to kill Kirk. He also outlined text messages with his transgender roommate, who was also his romantic partner, that confirms Robinson's guilt. Meanwhile, attorneys for a man accused of killing a police officer in Utah say that they're gravely concerned that he will not survive to see trial if he is not moved from the Utah County Jail. Now, in a motion that was filed this last week, Michael Jane's attorney accused some jail employees of systematically sabotaging his client's constitutional rights, physical health, and mental well-being. Now, the motion is asking a judge to allow Jane to be taken into federal custody by the U.S. Marshal Service. Now, Jane, who is 43, is charged with aggravated murder and faces a possible death sentence for allegedly hitting and killing Santaquin Police Sergeant Bill Hooser with a semi-truck back in May of 2024. And in other news, the Cache County Republicans will be celebrating Constitution Day coming up tomorrow with a traditional dinner and guest speaker. Now, the event, which recognizes the adoption of the U.S. Constitution, will be taking place at Utah State University's Natural Resources patio from 6 to 8:30. Now, the guest speaker will be Trent Staggs, the current mayor of Riverton and the former U.S. Senate candidate. Now, Staggs is also the author of a new book, which is titled Heirs of the Revolution. Now, the book, which was published in July, is a rallying cry for all Americans to reclaim their role as stewards of liberty. Now, tickets for the event are $25 per guest and can be purchased online at the Cache GOP's website. Well, we're going to see clear skies continuing through the rest of the afternoon and into tonight as temperatures will drop into the low 40s. Tomorrow we'll be back into the mid-70s. We'll see high 70s, low 80s Thursday and Friday before a chance of some scattered showers and thunderstorms head our way for the weekend. And it's Roof Rescue that brings you weather here at the bottom of the hour, helping you to have watertight peace of mind from minor repairs to complete roof replacements. It's Roof Rescue. They've been in the area for 10 years, providing that watertight peace of mind to many throughout the valley. And get more information by visiting roofrescueusa.com. And I'm Will Feelright.
This is a special report from ABC News. I'm Dave Packer. The accused killer of conservative activist Charlie Kirk making his very first court appearance over webcam today before Judge Tony Gaff.
Could you state your name?
Tyler James Robinson.
This shortly after prosecutors in Utah announced they'll seek the death penalty against the 22-year-old.
County Attorney Jeff Gray described Robinson's appearance in widely circulated photos, the black cap, shades, T-shirt with an eagle and an American flag. Millions saw those images. One of them was the suspect's own mother.
Robinson's parents were able to convince him to meet at their home. As they discussed the situation, Robinson implied that he was the shooter and stated that he couldn't go to jail and just wanted to end it.
Prosecutors say Robinson's parents convinced him to turn himself in.
ABC's Matt Gutman. At the heart of the investigation, Robinson's text messages to his roommate where he claimed he used his grandpa's rifle, a rifle authorities say had Robinson's DNA on the trigger. This is ABC News.
For over a decade, Roof Rescue has been safeguarding your homes with the finest roofing solutions. We understand the value of your time. That's why we're committed to replacing most roofs in just one day. With award-winning service, 100% guaranteed workmanship, and the best warranties in the industry, your watertight peace of mind is guaranteed. Call us today at 435-999-4268 or visit roofrescueusa.com and ask for the $250 off any roof replacement. Financing available. That's roofrescueusa.com.
Alpine Home Medical, we bring wellness home.
Are you on your feet a lot? When traveling, do you find yourself sitting for long periods of time? Hi, I'm Jay Broadbent with Alpine Home Medical, and we have compression stockings that can help you. Our compression stockings are designed to improve circulation, reduce swelling, and provide unmatched comfort. Come check out all the different styles and fabrics. These aren't your great-grandparents' compression stockings. That's why we're excited to offer an amazing deal. Buy 3 pairs of compression stockings and get a free care kit. That's right, 3 pairs of compression stockings and get a free care kit. Come into any of our 11 locations and invest in your health this winter by embracing the benefits of compression. For more details, visit us at alpinehomemedical.com. That's alpinehomemedical.com.
Alpine Home Medical, we bring wellness home.
Hear that? That's the sound of a sad bird. He says your trees are so overgrown and ragged, he can't find a place to perch and sing you a happy song. Hear that? That bird is warning you. He says if you don't prune your branches before the next windstorm, they might end up in your living room. Yep, another talking bird. This one says call Hall Tree Care. Smart birds. Call Hull Tree Care and get 10% off. 760-6587. That's 760-6587.
Welcome back to KVN News for the People. Wanted to get to one more portion of, honestly, a lengthy conversation, one we don't have, time to tear in its entirety here, that I had the honor to have with a friend of mine and a friend of the show, Chayse Leavitt. Chayse is a very young man. He is a conservative activist here in Cache Valley, and someone who at one point even was a podcaster here in Cache Valley, one of the first, I think. And he says he was inspired to get involved in politics and podcasting, all that, by Charlie Kirk himself, the man who was gunned down in a political assassination last week at Utah Valley University. Now with just a bit of closure, at least, with the 7 charges officially being filed today by prosecutors against the alleged assassin, a 22-year-old man from Washington County, Utah. I reached out to Chayse and asked him if he could talk about all this. He's joined us on the show over the years to present that Gen Z perspective as a young person on legislation that lawmakers were debating regarding social media and other things like that. But I reached out to Chayse and said, as a Charlie Kirk fan, as a one-time podcaster yourself, where Charlie Kirk got his start, as someone involved in politics, and would you like to talk about this? Chayse is literally the age group everyone's talking about right now. From being in the same age group as the alleged shooter himself, to being the subject of Governor Cox's special message yesterday to college students, who are Chayse's age, to reject the hate and be careful about online radicalization. I wanted Chayse's perspective. Chayse is a busy guy. He's preparing for an LDS mission, so he wasn't able to join us live on the show here today. But he did agree to sit down, and we talked for about an hour. And I wanted to get to this one last part of our conversation regarding, both what made Charlie Kirk popular with young people, even those who hated his beliefs and didn't agree with him on anything, to what happens next.
Kirk, this is why I say he is a generational voice. I mean, some people may disagree with that, but think about the impact that he's had. Think about how I don't think that President Trump would have received the level of support from young people, 18 to 29-year-olds, if it weren't for Turning Point Action and Charlie Kirk. Charlie Kirk
Probably true.
did just him traveling to college campuses, registering voters, talking to college students, just like I mentioned earlier, it made them aware where they may not have been otherwise, whether they agreed with him or not.
I remember this from my college days, that some of the most memorable events I went to were events where someone that I did not agree with, or in a couple of cases did not even like, were speaking. And that taught me very quickly that there's a value to that. Still going and opening your ears and hearing what the person said. You might leave fuming mad, and red in the face, and just looking for somebody to vent to, but you were forced to think. And I think my first, well, I won't even talk about what my first thoughts were as I watched this played out, but I got to a point late last Wednesday where I started to worry that we're headed in a direction in this country, again, with some of the examples we've talked about here, the murder of the Democratic lawmakers in Minnesota, the assassination of Charlie Kirk, and then in between all of that, some of the things you see online, some of the way people respond with, kind of almost a nihilism to all of this, like nothing matters and even human life is worthless. You do get to a point where you're thinking, I don't know that we can dig out of this, but that is where talking to you is encouraging, and talking to others in your age group that have said to me, no, this was something that I talked to a young woman recently who said, I hated everything Charlie Kirk said. I never agreed with him, but she said I used to share his clips all the time because it was a way to encourage a conversation. And that to me gives me hope that actually maybe your generation gets it a little bit more. And by it, for anyone out there listening, I don't mean a certain style of politics or a certain opinion even, but how to do this, how to go through life and not become a nation where this is something that happens every week.
Right. And it bugs me so much when I see people commenting stuff like, oh, Charlie Kirk was, he was a fascist. He was evil. He was hate filled.
Sure.
But you actually go look at his stuff. At the end of the day, all he wanted was a conversation. Yes, was he firm with his beliefs? Of course he was, and that's how I think we all should be.
Yeah.
But
he could be a jerk occasionally.
Well,
there are a few clips where you're like, oh.
he put it bluntly sometimes.
But he still kept going out and inviting the conversation and putting himself out there to be debated. And it's admirable.
Which is something, that's the legacy all of us need to carry on of Charlie Kirk.
Sure.
Is, going into those, in some ways, contentious arguments and just kind of be like, look, I'll stand firm with what I believe, but let's talk. Because just like I said at the beginning, Charlie Kirk, always talked about how when the conversation ends, violence arises.
Sure.
And so I think it's just amazing what Charlie Kirk was able to accomplish, and the assassination of Charlie Kirk didn't end a voice, because his voice has grown exponentially larger.
And hopefully it encourages more Charlie Kirks. I mean, you've said yourself, Chase, that he was a very unique person. He had a kind of a quick-witted style that not everyone is going to be. I mentioned that there's on the left, there's someone like this named, I think it's Piker, but I'm not sure. I know his first name's Hassan, and he does he's sort of like the left Charlie Kirk, and he doesn't do campus tours, but he has this really insanely popular Twitch stream with like millions of viewers every time he just sits there for like 4 hours talking, and he lets people pick on him and challenge him and all that, and he takes them live. And I think about that. I think about Charlie Kirk, and I think about how important it is. And you mentioned like, a legacy of Charlie Kirk. Maybe that's it. Maybe the legacy is the importance of that, of not being afraid to have it. Maybe I should put it this way: being inclined to only surround ourselves with people we agree with.
Yeah.
and hide from anything that's going to challenge us.
Right.
That, to me, is what Charlie Kirk's legacy is kind of forming into here.
Oh, yeah. I mean, Charlie
his
Kirk,
death.
you know, obviously, I didn't know Charlie Kirk personally.
Sure.
But I think all of us who followed him, who understood the impact that he has, I think we could all kind of assume that he's up there saying, this is what I want. I want you to carry on. I don't want you to back down. I don't want you to, you know, be fearful. I don't want this act of evil to slow you down.
Again, a conversation there with Chayse Leavitt. Chayse, if you're out there listening, really appreciate taking some time for this. Chayse is a very good, busy guy right now, but he agreed to sit down and chat with me very informally about the events of the last week here in Utah. And overall, again, the message there from Chayse, the young people he knows, people his same age, whether they agreed with Charlie Kirk or not, they are finding this as a moment to not back down, to stay involved, to keep having debates and discussions, and yes, as the governor requested, to push back against the polarization and contempt in our politics, and that's encouraging. So, very encouraging conversation with Chayse. Chayse, again, thank you if you're out there listening for your time. When you're back a couple of years from now, please join us again here in the studio, and we'll talk more. And to our listeners, thank you for being here as well. On the other side, we'll wrap up today's show with a special message from Sutherland Institute. They decided to scrap their original plans for their weekly Defending Ideas episode, which our listeners get a sneak preview of each Tuesday at this time. And instead, Sutherland put together a special message for everyone regarding political violence, polarization, and the contempt we often hear in our politics, at least online. That's next here on KVN News for the People.
This is Gary Ricks. When I hear a family has been harmed from carbon monoxide poisoning, it really affects me because I know how easy it is to prevent that from happening. If you have an HVAC contractor, please call them for an annual heating tune-up. If you don't, call us. We'd love to help, and we have some discounts available. Your friend always, Gary Ricks.
Get your heating fixed, call Gary Ricks. Get your furnace fixed, call Gary Ricks.
We're here with Chuck, founder of Dollar Loan Center. You always tell me it's worth the drive. What do you mean by that?
We charge so much less than payday or title lenders, and unlike banks, we actually lend money. Our locations are really nice, Craig. No bulletproof glass, plastic furniture joints. They're like the banks used to be. Clean, fun, great tunes on, and real-life staff who love to help. And if you don't want to stop in, you can complete your whole application on your couch via your fancy smartphone. But we sure would like to meet you in person and tell you all about Dollar Loan Center and how we can help you get more money for less money.
DLC lends up to $5,000 in minutes, and you can get your cash in person at one of our 70 locations, on our website, don'tbebroke.com, or even over the phone with one of our helpful, real staff members. You're gonna love Dollar Loan Center.
Licensed by the Utah Board of Financial Institutions, subject to approval. Limitations may apply. See website for details.
How do you picture the golden years of life? Does it involve meaningful activities with family and friends? Maybe a field trip to some local sites with fun activities and social opportunities? Homemade meals, so you don't have to go to the grocery store. If you picture the golden years as some of your best years, may I suggest you see what Legacy House of Logan has to offer.
At Legacy House of Logan, we know how to take care of your loved ones, and it shows in every detail. Legacy House of Logan, your life just a little easier.
Every Tuesday here on the show, our listeners get a sneak preview of Sutherland Institute's weekly Defending Ideas episode, discussing various topics for, with the idea of promoting a discussion. And this week, Nick Dunn and crew at Sutherland Institute, a conservative think tank based in Salt Lake City, decided to scrap their plans for an episode. And instead, they put together a special message for Utahns and all of the country on how we should respond in light of the horrific events here in Utah last week and everything that's played out since, how we should respond to political violence, polarization, and contempt in our politics. It's this week's special message from Sutherland Institute. here on KVN News for the People.
This is Defending Ideas. I'm Nick Dunn. We'd initially planned a different episode to run in this slot, but given the horrific assassination of Charlie Kirk in Utah last week, I wanted to talk directly with you for just a few minutes, because I'm sure you're grappling with recent events and trying to make sense of it all, just as I am. And to be honest, it's hard to know what to say. Obviously, it should go without saying that first and foremost, we all condemn political violence and offer our prayers on behalf of the Kirk family. I also keep asking myself two questions. First, how is it possible for us to get to this point as a country where political disagreement is met with bullets rather than words and votes? And how do we bring our nation back from that? These questions feel especially relevant to what we do here on Defending Ideas. The subtitle of our podcast is Renewing the Principles of Common Sense Conservatism. And I've mentioned often that my greatest hope for the show is to equip you to be a more effective champion of the sound principles we discuss, and to do so in a way that reduces the political polarization and contempt that plague our nation. I've said previously on the show that it's far too common for many of us to think that in order to fight for what we believe in, we have to be jerks about it, to instinctively reach for the metaphorical club with which to bludgeon the other side. But if your true goal is persuasion, it simply doesn't work. Charlie Kirk discussed a wide range of political, policy, and cultural issues, some of which you may disagree with. But he was also a husband and a father, and he spoke often of his Christian faith. And I can't help but think that if more of us were to recommit to the essential institutions of civic life, faith, family, freedom, and the great responsibility that you and I have as inheritors of the American idea, if we do that, I think we can actually reduce the polarizing political contempt too many Americans feel, while still advancing the causes we feel passionately about. I'm not asking you to agree more or to disagree less. I'm actually asking you to seek more clarity about your disagreements with your fellow Americans, but doing so in a way that seeks to persuade people by lovingly inviting them to consider and hopefully embrace the principles you hold dear. What I really struggle to wrap my head around is this. When you or I encounter someone whose views we deeply oppose, why have so many of us lost the ability to simply say, he or she is wrong, and here's why? Why instead is the common instinct to disparage someone's character, morality, or motives so present in so many spheres of political disagreement? As a nation, we have become desensitized to the dehumanization of political opponents, and it is in the context of that kind of chronic, widespread dehumanization that some people conclude that violence is the answer. If there's one thing I want to ask of each of you, it's this. Stop using dehumanizing language to describe people whose views you think are wrong. Disagree with them, yes. Critique their arguments, yes. And practice the art of constructive debate by offering your values and principles as a gift to others rather than as a cudgel used to attack those who may disagree. I know this can feel incredibly difficult at times, and there are plenty of incentives to go the route of contempt and vitriol. In a recent message, Utah Governor Spencer Cox offered a choice that I think applies to each of us.
Right now, it may feel like rage is the only language in our politics, but you have the power to choose differently. Every person you meet is more than a party or more than a label, more than a post online. Everyone deserves dignity and respect. That means talking to people you disagree with, listening even when it's hard, and forgiving even when it feels impossible.
I know it's hard, but the gift and the responsibility of being an American is that you and I, each of us, need to be willing to do what's hard because it's what is right for our country. That means engage with people you disagree with. Share your beliefs and values with respect, love, and a little curiosity, always with the goal to understand or persuade, never to disparage. The problem we face today is not that there's too much disagreement in this country. We've had disagreements about tremendously consequential matters of politics, policy, even morality from the beginning. The problem is that we've forgotten how to do it the right way. That's the opportunity before you and me. That's the lesson I hope we learn from the tragic events of last week. And that's the goal I hope Defending Ideas lives up to in future episodes. Look, I consider myself a political conservative. America's founding ideals and the civic institutions that have made it great, and my own Christian faith and my role as a husband and father, these are all anchors for me that help inform how I hope to make a small difference in this country. I want you to identify and regularly and clearly share what your anchors are. We should be willing to oppose ideas we think are damaging, defending those ideas we think are virtuous, and always doing so in a way that extends love and respect to other people. I know we can do this, and I hope you'll join me in this effort. Well, that'll do it for this week's special message on Defending Ideas. If this resonated with you, please subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Visit defendingideas.org for more. From the Sutherland Institute in Salt Lake City, I'm Nick Dunn. We'll see you next time.
A great place to wrap this one up. Again, a special message there from Sutherland Institute's Nick Dunn, and in lieu of their plans for a new episode of Defending Ideas, they will be back with us next week, a sneak preview for our listeners of a full episode of Defending Ideas, but I'm glad they took the time for that one. An important message, and again, a great place for us to wrap all of this up today. So appreciate our listeners being with us. Tomorrow on the show, again, candidates we haven't spoken with yet in municipal races around the Valley. We're going to be focusing on that this week and next. And criticism growing for Utah Valley University security teams after some information released today revealed that text messages sent out to students after the shooting last week implied the shooter had been caught. And so students went out on campus about their business, and the shooter was still at large. Utah officials and lawmakers now want to know how this happened and how it can be prevented. We'll talk about that tomorrow on For the People. Stick around. Dave Ramsey is next here on KVNU Logan.
On News Talk KVNU Logan, 610 AM, 102.1 FM, and online at 610kvnu.com.